Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to this week's episode. And this week, we have Saurabh Gupta, a co-founder, an author that has published a lot of books. He is a co-founder of Frogo, the multi-million-dollar startup company in Asia, and has done a lot. And today, we're going to be discussing with him about landscape, about innovation, about cold chain. And there's so many things we're going to benefit, whether we're employees still working in a corporation or people who are now in startup, entrepreneurs or looking for angel investors. So to start with, I went through your profile and I noticed that there was a point in time where you switched from the corporate world, from being an employee to moving into startup. The last place you worked, according to your profile, was in Michelin. You were the general manager of data analytics department. And then you moved into a startup. Now, the first question that anyone want to ask for somebody who got to that level of being a general manager, why did you switch from the corporate world, from the 9 to 5, to risking it in a startup?
Yeah, it was a inflection point in my career when I switched from my well-established corporate career to startups where, you get grinded every single day, every single
Yeah.
night. Right. So I leave the corporate as such just for the sake of starting up and coming from the corporates like GE, Michelin and Oracle. I think they helped in setting up the fundamentals very strongly. Right.
Mm,
So, and you spend time there, you get to know the processes, you get to know, the feel of scale
true.
and people. These are large corporates, large organizations. So how these things needs to be settled. So I think that way corporate helped me in strengthening the fundamentals. And there was a point in time in my career when I felt that my inclination is moving more towards building the products
Mm,
and owning not just the successes, but also the failures. So I think that was the point when had a good experience in analyzing that where the industry is headed to and what should be the potential next step for me in my growth ladder for the career. And that's when I made a switch that from corporate, I need to probably start something of my own or something where, the share of ownership needs to be little more and not just recommending solution and waiting for months and months to get them implemented. Yeah.
well, how did that make you feel? Like the day you were dropping, in some cases, a letter of resignation, or you were like, this is the day I'm going to leave. That means that there's not going to be a monthly salary, or in some cases, some part of the world where you have your salary coming bi-weekly. And there's some concurrent expenses you have in your house, expenses like rent, like electricity. How did that make you feel knowing that, okay, tomorrow is going to be my last day in this corporate world?
Well, at some point in time, we all go through that tough phase. And I think in my case, I had planned that way that for certain period of time, and that will be my one advice for all the entrepreneurs as well, that if you have those certain dependencies in your life, then plan it well before,
Mm,
because beyond all of this, or said much before we grow up in our careers, we become entrepreneurs, founders, there are certain basics of life that needs to be sorted up before you take that extreme step.
yeah, yeah,
And if you have a family that needs to be sorted, that is your first priority, no matter what happens, no matter what your ambitions or
yeah.
aspirations are. So I think when I was planning to get into startups, I planned that for certain period of time, I can survive and I can stay without getting those 30-day paychecks. So yeah, I think that all depends on planning. That depends on your confidence on yourself, on your product you're building, how quickly you will strike through the BMF stage, and by when you will start making revenue and by when you will start drawing salary from that. So yeah, plan it well, understand what your dependencies are, understand what your liabilities are, and first check them out that what stage, these until what time you can survive and by when you'll start making money and by when you'll move towards the wealthier zones.
Thank you. So let me drag you into the startup itself. The first startup you had was Codex, correct? And like you said, prior to that, you've never built an official startup. So that was one of the first ones you jumped in. And When you jumped in, was it what you expected? Did it turn out pretty much what you expected, or you met challenges along the way?
Well, not at all. So startups are not something that will be pre-planned, because no matter how much homework and how much research you do, there'll be always something to learn every morning. So the area in which Codex was getting, or say, was operated and was conceived, that was a very nascent and I would say very common idea. We were
Mm,
doing data democratization. We were building data literacy programs for corporates, and we were assessing the landscape of chief data officers, chief AI officers, and assessing them to a level that they would clearly understand that what are the gaps and how do they need to fill it. This was
mm,
our simple model. So where what we did well was the market research, the structuring of our literacy programs, the pitch of our data democratization, and our, the entire story build was, I would say, it was done decently well. Okay.
mm.
And then what learning did we had along the way was we were trying to teach someone who is positioned for that job, right? And that is not easy. We are telling these CXOs what they have to do, understanding
Yeah,
that they are the one who have been hired for that job, right? And then operating in a low margin business is something that we learned that it is not very easy. It over the time it becomes a very nerve wrenching discussion to have a longer sales cycles. Then you know that
yeah,
the pretty low margin business. So with all the technicalities of the business aside, no matter how much do I love technology, how much do I love data and digital interventions, but
yeah,
end of the day, what matters that is this a profitable business or is
yeah,
this a sustainable business, right? So I think that is one thing that we learned, that if you need to package an offering that teaches someone, first you need to tell them that what are the benefits or what is the as of today and what will be their picture of your service offering would be, and over the time how will they benefiting, they will be benefiting. And
yeah,
then if the business requires longer sales cycles, then you need to work on the cash flow and the working capital management,
yeah.
right? So salaries need to be paid every month. There will be running expenses of
That's true.
organization. There will be marketing expenses, that longer sales cycles. So I think that is what the critical learning out of Codex was.
Mm,
And then we also tested it out. We had a guy in our team who was very critical about these things. So we tested out, we said, okay, let's test out our content. So we converted all our content into small, tiny learning
mm.
modules. We will
Wow.
start doing immediately, so that we understand that whether our content has a problem or we need to rework on the content strategy again. And fortunately, that those tiny modules went viral. I mean,
Mm,
all of those learning long duration programs that were supposed to be the literacy programs at corporates, those tiny 2-3 hours modules
yeah, yeah.
well. So that gave us the confidence that our content is good,
Mm,
fixes immediately into the expectation of a corporate or wherever the literacy gaps are. All it needs is the buy-in from respective CXOs, and who are hesitant as of now and who probably want to squeeze out most of their vendors. Right. So all in good sense, it's a great learning path.
Now you've come a long way in startups. And currently you are the co-founder of Frogo, like I mentioned earlier, which is a multi-million-dollar startup. And you're also an angel investor. So you invest in startups as well. And you're an author. You've written a lot of books. And one of the books you wrote that we can find on Amazon is Leading Culture Change and Transformation. And that's where my question comes in. We've got many startups that if they get to a particular milestone in terms of customer portfolio, in terms of finance and funding, they kind of slow down on innovation and transformation. Do you think that innovation and transformation is paramount, regardless of whether you have a sufficient amount of fund, revenues, or portfolio of customers?
Absolutely. I think so. First of all, I would make a point here that everything depends on the mindset. Okay. So innovation, very often we confuse that innovation is invention. It's not. Innovation. is the mindset of solving a problem in a peculiar way or in a best optimized way. Okay. So, and this is something that we have to practice daily. And that's what I used to tell my organization, that even if we are building a, say, documentation, there could be a
Yeah.
better way, the documentation in a much faster time, much quicker, and much to the point, which is very easy to understand for our customers and clients. So, coming back to your question about what my book talks about regarding culture, innovation, and transformation,
Yeah.
I have been a strong advocate of building the mindset and building
Mm.
that strategic view before you start becoming the advocate of, or say, execution of the technology and products, right? Tech is something that will keep on changing, that will keep on taking a fold every decade earlier, but now it is every month or every 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But that should not dent the urge to innovate and build innovative solutions for your customers. All it depends on whether your product in the first 5 minutes strikes the problem which the customers are facing or not.
Mm.
Right? They don't care whether it uses Gen AI. They don't care whether it uses some LLM models. They don't care.
Yeah.
All is it solving my problem or not? And lot of things, lot of cultural aspects play a role in this entire journey. Whether the alignment within the internal teams is there or not. We say that an organization these days has to be AI driven, tech driven.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's true.
is that connected? Is that connected from top to bottom?
Yeah.
Can everyone speak the similar lingo or speak the similar language? When it comes to customer centricity, are we talking about picking up the phone and giving the call to the customer, or we are referring to some better experience which can connect, which can resonate with the customers? So I think the art of solving a problem and the passion to solve the problem for the customers requires cultural alignment and innovative mindset. So I think my book talks majorly about that. In case there is a cultural shift, in case because of the technological interventions, if there is a need of transformation, how does that happen? What should be the sequence? What should be the right science behind the successful transformation? And through some case studies, I bring out this certain templates, certain processes, plus the roles, the role of allies, the role of leaders, how they should be carrying out the journey of transport transformation in today's age. Yeah, I think long story short, what I would mention that the tech is something that keeps on changing and
Yeah.
we will keep on innovating. But the true innovation comes with how many problems did we hit?
Yeah. 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 Not just some random innovation, but is it solving a problem? If it's not solving a problem, then it's just a waste of time and resources. Now, one of the challenges, problems that we have in supply chain industry has to do with infrastructure. Because one of the services your startup and Frogo takes care of is cold chain logistics. And mainly in the major markets, cold chain logistics has huge problems with regards to constant power supply, with regards to road network. Very crucial. Now, when you guys were building your startup and working on the idea, was that a challenge? Was that some sort of limitation? If it was, how did you and your team find a way to work around it?
Yeah, I'll tell you certain instances when we were starting up. The first year of our operation, we were into B2C space. That means we were directly betting
Yeah.
on moving the frozen goods from one point all the way till the customer directly.
Wow.
We thought that we all have a basic awareness about frozen. We understand how frozen has to be kept and received.
Yeah.
But then we realized that we are trying to challenge the infrastructure problems. We are trying to challenge the supply chain as a process. And we are thinking that this is the stock, or say these are the items. You just have to move from point A to point B.
Correct.
It could have been true in any of the inventory, any of the categories, but not in frozen. So by end of the year, we thought the problem is something different. The problem is not in the last mile supply chain.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
and that how this cold supply chain is to be handled in the first mile and the mid mile. Because if you
True.
solve that, number one, you solve the wastage problem.
True.
Number two, you have the availability of the items at a much higher rate rather than acquiring something from n number of channels and then saying this is from this point my supply chain start, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, after first year when we had this realization of the problem, we switched into B2B to solve a much bigger problem, which not just India, but wherever I go, I see the similar set of issues. It is related to logistics. It is related to temperature breaches.
Yeah.
It is related to the non-awareness of the people or say ground operations who is handling frozen. So after the first year, when we moved into this side of the world, it was
Mm.
totally all our problems transformed from those small, minuscule to much larger
Much not a
problem.
problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Because right now you are not looking at two-wheeler or a bike to transport the stock. Right now you're looking at a much larger vehicle, like a 32 feet vehicle,
Yeah. Trucks. Huge trucks. Yeah.
huge trucks. And availability, or say if the truck is standing right outside your warehouse, that doesn't solve my problem.
Yeah.
Has to maintain a particular temperature, has to maintain throughout the time the loading is happening, has to maintain throughout it is on the road,
Yeah. Yeah.
out it is getting unloaded, and then we say the trip is done.
True.
Now, this what I just said is much, much complex than moving any other category, dry, ambient, or chill. That's the point where probably you maintain accuracy, but this has to be handled as a baby, as fragile as a baby. So, and I think in the last couple of years, what we have experienced that the volume matters, your partnership with the industry matters.
Mhm.
Right partners will help you get the right logistics with the control, with the negotiated control on what level of say do you have in their processes. As I said, the processes play a huge role. The discipline, the consistency. That's what I tell my team. You don't have to be motivated every day,
Yeah.
but you have to
Yeah.
be consistent. You have to follow the process. You don't like it, follow the process.
Yeah.
You feel bored, follow the process. Process is extremely important when you're working in an industry where your most valuable asset has to pass through multiple hands,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
People who know can't be there all the time on the ground. People who are knowledgeable, people who know how fragile frozen handling is.
True.
All you can do is set the process, train your people, set the SOPs, and ask them to consistently follow that process day in, day out, through and throughout. So it is the problems that we face. There are a lot of issues. There'll be a lot of challenges. And I'm happy that me, the co-founding team, along with my operations team, are ready to take this step every single day.
So were there times where you guys felt like giving up? Were there times where you felt exhausted? You're like, there's a challenge, the situation, it keeps popping up, and you've tried what you think you can, but it's either costing you time or resources. Were there times where you guys felt like, let's just pack and go? Were there times like that?
The situation has come, the trigger has come. There'll be a lot of situations that will trigger that thought. But then always you have two different routes, either to take this easy route, which is just wind up and leave. Then there is a second one, which says go back to the basics, go back to the whiteboard and find out what is missing. What is the missing link?
Yeah.
Is it the process or is it fundamentally something different that we have not discovered yet? And most of the time, we have not most of the time, all the time in the last 4 years, we have chosen the second path. If there is a problem, if there is something which is creeping us so much that we feel like leaving it right now, go back to the basics, take a step back and find out what the problems are.
Mm.
And fortunately and gratefully, I think we have been able to resolve the issues. And there will be issues when you're running a
Yeah.
business,
That's true.
especially
Yeah.
operations days, plus the cold supply chain, there will be challenges. And most of the challenges will be solved through process and not mandatorily you need to go and find out the solution. You need to find some alternatives also that quite a few times we see that someone else's problem becomes our problem,
Yeah.
right? So need not to solve it, just find out what are the best alternatives, and are these best alternatives, can they become your mainstream solution or not? So there are ways to handle it.
Hmm.
It differs by personality also, that how do you tackle these challenges. New city, new warehouse, new logistics, new supply chain, there will be
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah.
So fix it, solve it as long as you can fix it, and then set the process. And I think the adherence of these processes actually makes the difference on the.
Hmm. So for people who are new entrepreneurs, they should know that it's normal to feel like quitting at times. It's normal to have that anxiety of, I can't do this. But what you also said is go back to the drawing board, keep pushing yourself, keep motivating, look at the problem. Are you the problem? Is there something you can do in a different way so that you can continue with your projects, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct. And just one point I'll add here: over the time, you so get to understand you and your own behavior, your own character
Yeah.
in situation. That builds your first principle, right?
Hmm.
My natural instinct is go to the whiteboard, go to the drawing board, and start listing down the problem.
Hmm.
Obviously, you'll find a solution during the course of your conversation itself, or during the discovery itself. You'll find out that, okay, now I have three options, and let me try this out. And
Yeah.
how long to try that out, how long you need to experiment with your hypothesis. This is what builds your personality. This is
Yeah.
what builds your style. Right.
Yeah.
So we all come with different style. I'll have my own. You have your own
Yeah.
way of doing things. But what essentially it builds is the theory of first principles, knowing yourself
Yeah.
and getting to know that how do you react, how does your emotions act together in a certain situation. So yeah, that has been a great learning for me, at least in the
Hmm.
last 5.
So speaking out in the point of you being a co-founder, what are the things that if I want to go into startup and I need a co-founder, just because you're talking about personalities, and like, what do you look for in a potential co-founder so that you guys don't end up moving from trying to be a co-founder to becoming enemies? So what do you look for when you want to have a co-founder?
Unfortunately, I've been working with very good folks around. I've been fortunate enough. I look for the alignment, and then I look for the participation. That if you and me are discussing on a topic, how much of the participation we both have, right? Are you able to, or are you able to say no to my points or not? These are not
Yeah.
how much of healthy conversation we are having, right? So even if we are very different in terms of thought process, in terms
True.
of a solutioning approach, what
Yeah.
matters after certain period of debate, do we have the intent to arriving at a solution or not, right? So a problem may start. I have a different view, you have a different view, we both debate on each other's topic. First of all, it's a very great thing to have that healthy debate within the co-founders, within the founders. And after 15, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, 2 days, do we have the guts to say, let's do this way?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I'm thinking. Let's do this. Let's try this. Can we connect both of our thought process and find a middle path to take it forward? And these are the times when you probably have conflicts, when probably you have a difference in opinion. But how many times? Like most of the time, you say that, yeah, this is the right way to go forward. Let's go. Bingo. But in case of conflicts, how do you handle those situations?
Hmm.
Right. So if I connect the dots together, the alignment, the participation, and being fair at that level is very important to be as a co-founder.
Because I know that's one of the major problems that people have. And we've seen friends turn co-founders and turn enemies. We've seen strangers become co-founders and become friends. We've seen siblings becoming co-founders and becoming enemies. So personality counts, but I like what you said. You should be able to talk about things. You don't always have to agree. It could take minutes, hours, days, but afterwards, where are we headed to? There should be a response, there should be an answer. There should be the possibility of trying something else that works. And I like that a lot. And that moves me to you being an angel investor because you do a lot. You're an author, you're a co-founder, and you also invest in startups. And we have startups that also need support, financial support, and they need investors. What are the few, let's just say 3 or 4 things you look at, crucial things that investors like you look at in a startup before you say, I'm going to do it or I'm not? Or the things that startups do that kind of like kill the possibility of them having investors.
Sure. So I think, first of all, I'm a very picky investor and not someone like a PE firm or a VC firm that will in, try and invest. First of all, I take my own sweet time to assess a startup, assess an idea, and
Mm,
most of the time I've invested in very novel ideas, not for the business returns or something like
yeah,
that. I want that. I won't deny that it is something secondary. It is primary, but I usually invest in novel startups ideas. So what I look after is that the impact factor. Number one, is that idea making an impact or not? That is my single most primary metric which I look at. Second is what is the founding team structure, right? And are they aligned together? Are they passionate to pursue this for long? Are they mentally strong, emotionally strong to go through those tough days when
yeah,
things don't fall in line? And then what is their growth plan? Majority of the startups don't make money on the day one,
yeah,
but have a very clear view that after a certain time, after certain like 1 year, 2 years, this is the path to profitability. That variable can change it. If they committed for 2 years, that may become 3 year, 5 years.
yeah, true.
They are to travel that path to profitability. Is it resembling, or say, is it reflecting in their actions and in their business strategies or not? Right. So I think these three things are extremely critical
Mm,
on the idea of what is the impact factor. Second is the founding team. And third is the path to profitability, a viable one. Okay, not something
yeah,
that looks so good on paper, but when you go on to the execution fronts, you fall
yeah,
flat.
true.
So profitability, which is practical, that can be executed, that you see it's a viable one. So that's how I invest. I invest in very few startups. I mostly like to promote the new freshers, the education. If they have a really good idea,
Yeah,
something with me, I think I go and invest. Or else I'm happy to just advise, listen to what their model is, whatever the best help I can do, I do.
yeah,
I'll give it a pass.
cool. Taking you back to the supply chain industry, the crucial things that kill supply chain industry in emerging markets, it's infrastructure,
Mhm.
political climate or landscape, economic landscape, social landscape. And these are the things that in emerging markets, when you go into them, you always concern, like, how do I maneuver these things? How do I get past it? Because one policy could ruin your ideas, your startup or everything. Even your investors could just run away, So what advice would you have for startups who are in emerging markets? What kind of advice would you have for somebody who's going into that industry and yet have to face these landscapes?
First of all, you need to keep eyes and ears open to all such changes happening at the political level, at the social level, national level, right? So you need to be aware, and second, you need to have some good people around you to
Bro,
uh, can absorb, who can digest, and who can give out a better advice.
yeah,
Uh, Not everyone expects you to know everything from
that's
one
true.
to
Yeah, yeah,
surrounded with good people, be the part of good communities so that you can openly discuss that, okay, I heard this, I got to know about this decision. How is it going to make an impact? So you to learn from others' view. It's a community learning, it's a peer-to-peer learning that you need to have and you need to be confident of. Third is the business has to be very agile. Gone are the days when the business or say businesses will be so deeply invested in
yeah,
certain assets that
yeah,
it's very difficult to make the changes or take them out, right? So there are businesses, I won't deny there are businesses with huge capital blockage, and they're working their own way. And they will find the way of certain decisions at different level, which is connected with them directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
However, what my suggestion is that until the time you reach that stage,
Mm.
right, your system, the model has to be very flexible, has to be worked in a very fluidic way, right?
Yeah.
And if there are assets, you need to know that what to do with those assets in case there are certain things. There are situations where you might go for liquidation, you might go for rolling back the assets, or you want to take some action, give it out, whatever the case may be. So, and I'm assuming that these situations or say these decisions at different levels will impact these startups in different way. There
True.
could be positive side as well.
True.
And a lot of times there are benefits, there are programs, there are grants, there are relaxations in certain
Yeah.
policies. These are also certain situations where you need to think how to make use of those things, those
That's true.
programs.
That's true.
And in an emerging market, the system tries to support you. The governance tries to build policies so that you can grow. Not every startup is equipped enough to make use of that.
True.
Correct? So most of the time we think that if there is a policy or if there is a decision, we have to save our business. However, if you see the contrary view, if there are policies, if there are decisions, you need to think how can this be leveraged to take my startup from level 1 to next level to 2, 3, 5, right? I think, and that's where again your community plays a very critical role. The people around you, what are their sentiments? Do they want to go in hibernation? Are they conserved, or they want
Yeah.
to say that this is how it will work in our way, and we can grow the startup, or we can grow our setup using this policy, using this change, and using certain say market indicators, and we can take the leaps from here.
Mm. That's a very good way to say it, because many startups do not really explore the policies and what the government have in place. They don't know. And in some cases, they
Yep.
don't even know that they have to consult some professionals that will help them look into it.
Our natural instinct to whenever there is a change, our natural instinct to go conservative, to
Yeah.
hold it that okay, I need to change. Oh my God, I need to change it again.
Yeah.
Not all the changes are bad. Changes are the opportunities. What you do with those opportunity defines okay, the change, there was a situation, there are people who will make use of it, who will probably make steps in add steps in their ladders, and they'll grow multi-mile from the same changes, from the same instances, right? So we need to learn that how to build that perspective of converting change into an opportunity. That change could be a policy, could be a decision, could be a situation.
So I have one other question that I've got to ask. You seem to have a very busy schedule because you run a startup. You also monitor or supervise where your funds are invested in as an angel investor. And then you write books. First of all, how do you have the time to do that, to write these books? And for people who want to become publishers as well, what are the best pieces of advice you can give to them before they start?
I think the first level of question was about multitasking. How do you multitask? Well, I think the best part is that you have to be authentic, whatever role you are playing throughout the day. If you are, once you are in your office looking at the daily numbers, starting your day, getting into some stand-ups meetings, be real, be authentic, and don't try to pretend that things are fine. If it is shit, take it as shit. If it
Yeah.
is good, appreciate the team, pat their backs, right? So I think if you think a lot on how to handle yourself, that takes a lot of time. Unfortunately, the clock doesn't know that I need to stop when you're
Yeah.
thinking. It's on ticking when you're thinking. So the best option you have is to be yourself, understand yourself that how you're going to react in certain situation. So I think that helps all of us and people who are alongside me. Don't waste time in thinking way too much, which doesn't
Yeah.
qualifies you to be thinking. The second part of your question was around the books. Again, I spend whenever I'm writing, I'm not writing anything right now, apart from one small fiction, which is my ambitious project. When I'm writing non-fiction, I try my best to reflect my experience and
Mm,
write it. So two things may happen. One, I didn't had sufficient experience to write, right? Second, I had experience, but I don't know how to write in words.
yeah.
Third is you research a lot, you think enough that this is what your experience was, and then you start writing here and there in bits and pieces. Now, your job after a week is to combine all of those small written snippets and structure them in a chapter. That's the true art. That's what I learned when I
Mm,
writing my first book. That I know my knowledge probably is lying in small fragments, some paper, some small chapter, some tiny notebook. All I need to do is to just combine
yeah,
and
combine them together. Yeah.
then give that a form of structure. It may be my cheat sheet.
Mm,
It may be my the small tiny dirty note. So the art of getting into authorship is to structure your thoughts, structure all your findings, structure all your discoveries in the form of a chapter, and that becomes the book. And I think now I just released my sixth book. So I probably have honed that skill that no matter what,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
put the notes in unstructured format here and there. And one fine day, I'll sit down and I'll just bring everything and give a structure of a chapter.
Thank you. That I would also take because some persons prefer to be in the mood, like in that zone. Then you start scripting and writing. But like you said, you could just have, it could be pockets of ideas and notes. You could collect that, and that can literally be the skeleton of your story, your book writing. We've had a great time with you, co-founder Saurabh Gupta of Frogo, and you've really shared vital points with us. You talked about the adaptability in your cold chain logistics was fantastic. Yeah, we have the poor infrastructure, but what do we do? What do we do? Who's that partners we can contact and have a structure with where the truck has to be in this temperature from first mile to the last mile delivery from point A to point B? That's the needs, rather than complain that, okay, there's no power supply and there's not this. I'm just going to pack up. No, you said adapt. Then you talked about government grants, certain policies that can also be used. And there's no shame in changing a structure for business. Then it's not a bad thing if you feel that's tendency to want to quit or you feel like you're not moving. It's normal. Founders, every founder feel like that from your experience. Then you talked about the book writing as well and how rather than waiting to be in that zone, you could just pockets of ideas here and there can accumulate into a book. Now, what's your final advice for prospect founders and entrepreneurs?
So, yeah, I think for the upcoming founders, budding entrepreneurs, focus on the business more than thinking of the time when probably you'll become successful. Most of the time, we find entrepreneurship and building a business quite glorifying, right? It's quite bright and it give you name, fame. But what we fail to realize that is not the point to start.
Yeah.
At the starting point, that is where you will eventually reach over the time. Or probably you'll ride on your hard work, on your grit, and on your perseverance, right? So be yourself, be real, be authentic, and things will fall your line. You will
Thank
reach
you.
there.
Thank you. I believe that a lot of startups will benefit from that. That's a very good reason why you're here today, because we have startups that are really going through a lot. They're looking for co-founders, they're looking for funding, they're looking for motivation, for encouragement. They have financial expenses they've committed to. So people like you who have come a long way successfully can be a source of encouragement to the starters. Thank you, Mr. Saurabh.
Thank you.